Turning our attention to the Vale of Neath line, we begin at Pontypool Road, on board a train departing number 2 platform for Neath. We first head southwest to take the Pontypool Road north to west junction curve, passing the substantial loco shed, coded 86G on its left. There is a long sand drag on the opposite line as we approach West Junction. The train coming the other way is hauled by Pontypool Road's Prairie 4157. She went to Woodham's of Barry the following year, 1965, and no, not preserved as usual, cut up within days of arrival. This is Pontypool, Clarence Street. Nearing Havador-Ennis, we're in a coal mining area with various industrial tank engines to shunt the yards. The approaching train is hauled by 4121 of Tondy Shed, and she also went to Woodham's Yard. Preserved in 1981, she went initially to the Dean Forest. We will stop here for a while to look at Havador-Ennis Colliery. It was shunted by Hunslet Austerity tanks, this one then Dower built in 1954. In the 1970s she was joined by a sister, Gwent, also built by Hunslets of Leeds in 1952, her works number 3780. D6887 takes out a load of newly mined coal. Glendower would be preserved, initially going to the South Devon Railway at Buckfastleigh. The line back to Pontypool Road was kept open until 1979, when Havador-Ennis mine closed. We rejoined the train to Neath, passing 4121, that incidentally worked the last westbound passenger train on this route, on the 13th of June 1964. The scenery changes as we head for the Ebbw Valley, descending at 1 in 68 through woodland. After Glyn Tunnel, we reach Havador-Ennis platform. This isolated halt had opened in May 1913. The notice refers to trains descending to the Ebbw Valley on a 1 in 42 gradient, to join the Newport to Bryn Mawr line. We pick up a token for crossing the Crumlin viaduct. Once double-tracked, it was singled in April 1928. "200 feet below is Crumlin low-level station. The viaduct opened in 1857, 4 years after construction began. The main valley is split by an intervening ridge separating it from the Kendon Valley, really a deep gully. It is therefore 1,658 feet long. A speed restriction of 8 miles per hour is enforced on the viaduct after the GWR were forced to redeck the structure, replacing iron plate with steel in 1928. To the north is Crumlin Navigation Colliery. Here the final 2 spans over the Kendon Valley are crossed. Passengers at Crumlin High Level Station had a long downhill journey to services on the Western Valley lines, but this time the notices for closure of the Vale of Neath line were posted for June 1964. Neath Shed's fordable 10 comes off the viaduct on the 28th of March 1964, 3 months before closure. She lived on at Cardiff Ryder and Seven Tunnel Junction sheds until June 1965. Sent to Woodhams, she left there as the 100th departure from this famous yard for preservation at Southall. We head southwards out of Crumlin, giving fine views of the viaduct as we head for Owen Holt that had closed in 1960. Approaching Pannier Junction, the line going north was part of Horse Tramway leased by the GWR in 1877 to Manmoyle Colliery. The next station at 9 miles from Pontypool Road was Pontypool Low Level. We approached the 308-yard Bryn Tunnel, after which at Hengoed East Junction a loop curves away to join the Brecon and Merthyr at Fleur-de-Lis. We cross the Hengoed Viaduct, viewing Mysa Station below. On a train bound for Brecon, we approached this station with the 860-foot-long viaduct in view, towering 130 feet above the Brecon and Merthyr line. Rejoining the Vale of Neath train, we curve into Hengoed High-Level Station, where one could change for Cardiff and the Crumlin Valley. On departure we passed Reherbert's 6688. Track lifting is in progress below as we curve around some 15-chain radius curves towards Nelson and Llancaich. Double 690 arrives at Nelson. The station saw much coal traffic as this was the major revenue earner on the line. The station was a junction for Dowlais and the Taff Vale to Pontypridd. Besides loaded coal trains, there were also the returning empties. 5600 class 062 tanks were a common sight. .5603 of Merthyr Shed, but this would have been Kai Harris, a subshed of Merthyr, has arrived from Dowlais and will run round its train. The station had 3 platforms capable of taking 9 coach trains. The island platforms formed 2 and 3, the outer face used for the Dowlais trains. We run out of the station on a slightly falling gradient, the last time this will happen for the next 7 miles to the summit of the line at Cumbar Goid. The single line token is picked up for the Dowlais branch, the line to Neath off to the left. The first stop is at Trelewis Platform, a pagoda-style building on the downside, then Taff Merthyr Holt, opened in 1928. The down platform has a concrete shelter, no building on the up. We pass Nantwen Colliery, originally owned by the Dowlais Iron Company before Bedlinog, 800 feet up on a gradient of 1 in 52. Translated, it means Grave of the Fox. The line continues to climb on gradients as steep as 1 in 39. We pass 2 5600 tanks waiting to descend. We are in the upper Taff Bargoid Valley where no metalled road passes through. In a little over 3 miles we have gained another 450 feet. The curving approach to Cumbar Goid and the summit of the line at 1250 feet. It's September the 12th, 1963. We are now on Dowlais Moor, a bleak place especially in winter. The farmer can now relax a little on the downhill stretch through Penydarren platform. Onto Dowlais Junction, giving access to a jigsaw puzzle of lines and reversing junctions leading originally to Dowlais Steelworks. A deep cutting, prone to drifting snow in winter, is on the approach to Dowlais Kai Harris. A single platform was sufficient for the passenger traffic, although there was a bay platform, normally used for storing stock. 5603 propels its stock out to run round. With a backdrop of the famous waste tips of Dowlice, a 5600 tank runs back to the 3-road engine shed. The shed had an allocation of around half a dozen of this class over the years, outstationed from the parent shed, Merthyr. We continue our journey on the Vale of Neath, back at Nelson with 6690 leaving. Mainline and branch run close together on different levels towards the mining area of Treharris. Next stop was Trelewis Halt, the other side of the village to Trelewis platform on the Dowlice line. Treharris. The clock is correct. We are on the 8:40 a.m. from Pontypool Road to Neath. The date is the 26th of May 1964. In a short distance we come to Quakers Yard, and on this GWR route, high level station. The junction down to the Taff Vale low level goes off to the left, opening in 1858. The high level station opened in October 1864. Below we see the low level with its double pagoda building that the Taff Vale opened 6 years before. Our engine takes water here. The line off to the right was the joint GW and Rumney Railway to Merthyr, closed in 1951. We view this line as we depart. On the opposite side, a view of low level and its line to Merthyr Vale. The disused joint line viaduct that subsided in 1951. Approaching the unventilated Quakers Yard West Tunnel at 703 yards, giving particularly bad smoky conditions inside it. We enter the Aberdare Valley and stop at Pannier High level. Notable for on the last day of the passenger services, a lone piper playing the last post, delaying the train by standing in the forefoot. In the valley below, the Taff Vale station of Pannier low level. On the Vale of Neath line, the next station is Mountain Ash Cardiff Road, just after Aberdare's 3699. The colliery Deep Dufferin was served by a stud of industrial tank engines. One was number 8, an XWD Austerity built by Robert Stevenson and Hawthorne in 1944 and given the number 75189. Sold back to Hunslet's in 1960, she was rebuilt and sold to Mountain Ash NCB in December 1961. A damaged firebox ended her career in 1980. She went to Blaenavon Big Pit Museum in 1982. The colliery had a workshop for repairs to its fleet. They had an Andrew Barclay outside cylinder 060 Flantarnham Abbey, built in 1939, but not carrying the name in these views. The name comes from the home of Sir Clifford Corey, chairman of Corey Brothers and Company, one of the foremost coal owners in South Wales. She also got preserved. Alongside her is Peckett Sir Gomer, and standing near the shed, Avonside built Sir John. The loco is fitted with a locally produced chimney akin to a drain pipe, something Avonsides were not responsible for when built in 1914. The Mountain Ash system began in the 1850s, linked to many collieries in the Cunnan Valley. It served a gasworks and even a granary for the needs of the pit ponies. The line also went up the valley to the coking ovens at Aberama. This would have melted the snow here, as we see Sir John shunting near the closed Cardiff Road station on the 16th of February 1971. Shelter for my father under the still extant platform canopy. Next up, number 8 again. Star of the show at Mountain Ash was Pannier 7754. She was sold to the National Coal Board in July 1959, having covered 580,900 miles. She went to Windsor Colliery and then served at Llanbradach, Ogilvie, Elliot and Talawine before arriving at Mountain Ash in 1970, and there she was painted green. She was not the first choice for the engine crews. They seemed to prefer their other industrial locos. However, by 1974, with the boiler re-tube and the wheels turned, she became a regular engine, until a blown left-hand cylinder cover put paid to any more service with the NCB. Stored out of use, it was vested in the Welsh Maritime and Industrial Museum, who put it into permanent loan on the Llangollen Railway. Here, it was restored to GWR condition and has worked there ever since. Between 1935 and 1949 she was allocated to Old Oak Common Shed and could be seen at Paddington on empty stock duties. She was the last standard gauge British Railway steam locomotive to work for her living when retired in 1975. Finally, number 8 shunts Deep Dufferin Yard. Back at Cardiff Road Station, it's time to board a train to Neath. Departing by Deep Dufferin Mine, we climb steadily past the pit head and exchange sidings where a pannier tank is waiting to depart and number 8 is shunting. Arrival at Cumbach Holt, 2¼ miles from Mountain Ash, and opened in 1914. This is the Furnacite plant before we drop down to Aberdare High Level. This had 2 staggered platforms connected by a covered footbridge. From here to Neath was the first section of the Vale of Neath line to open in September 1851. On past the loco shed, coated 86J, that had a roundhouse for mainly freight locomotives, certainly 7200 class 282 tanks. It closed on the 1st of March 1965. Trachun Holt opened in 1911 a mile out from Aberdare. The line here was built to broad gauge as Brunel assisted the construction as engineer on the line from Neath that was primarily to get to Merthyr. Arrival at Herewine. Just beyond here at Herewine Pond Holt, the railway attains its summit at 700 feet above sea level. Two miles from Herewine was Regos Holt. From here the scenery changes on the descent through Cumsuchrid. This is the 526-yard Pencar drying tunnel, emerging through a cutting lined with oak and ash to Glyn Neath, that had a small loco shed for banking engines. The station was 1½ miles from its town. We run alongside the River Neath to Resolven, with only 6 more miles to go to Neath. At Resolven East, we see Neath allocated 9716, with just another year's life left before withdrawal in June 1965. 2 passengers await our arrival. On leaving Resolven, we see there is some roofing work being carried out on the signal box, the ladder propped up in the forefoot, and not an orange jacket to be seen. The remaining descent of the Vale of Neath is fairly easy, including some almost level sections. Melincourt Holt was very basic, only 2 down and 1 up train a day deigning to call here. At the next halt, Aberdillis, at least 5 up and down trains did call, including ours. At Neath Junction, the Neath and Brecon Railway is on our far right, the junction lines going towards Swansea Docks. We cross the River Neath again and head for Neath General via Neath West Junction, the Swansea to Cardiff line joining us. Neath General Station is conveniently placed in the centre of the town with platforms at street level. Goods lines run behind the down platform, but this is journey's end for our trip from Pontypool Road, over 42 miles of spectacular railway with countryside industry and valleys. Our 5600 tank runs round its train using the middle road to achieve this. With the closing of the passenger service, several sections stayed open for freight, but most of the Vale of Neath closed for good. The most notable viaduct, Crumlin, would come down. The landmark in the Ebbw Valley gone forever. It was scheduled for preservation, but with no maintenance it deteriorated rapidly. Before demolition, its last claim to fame was when used by Universal Films for a sequence in Arabesque, with Gregory Peck and Sophia Loren riding horses over it. In 1965 dismantling started, the trackbed by Havre and his platform being lifted, followed by the viaduct's decking and girders. The Leyland lorry is having a rough ride along the partly dismantled trackbed. After 5 companies failed to demolish the structure, a local firm, Messrs. Birds, did succeed. The last tower makes a spectacular fall. However, we would like to remember the Crumlin Viaduct for its earlier days, when freight and passenger trains rumbled over it at 8 miles per hour. Millions of tons of coal must have passed this way in its 107-year history. A photograph of it, complete with Pannier tank, was even issued to Luftwaffe pilots during the Second World War, in case they found it and could destroy it. This film has hopefully concentrated on some of the more interesting places in South Wales and the Forest of Dean, mainly when steam was king. This final view shows what South Wales was all about: coal trains and hard work.